screen starts glowing, and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the easy good score.
Hey listeners, welcome to the 224th episode of The Goods, a film podcast. Brian, I have a joke for you.
Okay, who's there?
What did the person who went to the yard sale that was hosted by a former chef say?
What?
I don't want your knife. I want to see how many variations I can get on the I don't want your life quote from this movie in this episode.
Okay.
I don't want your life. James Van Der Beek. Because, listeners, we are discussing the 1999 film Varsity Blues. It stars James Van Der Beek. It is about high school football. So I asked Brian to watch this film. I mentioned that I had seen it when I was like, I don't know exactly, but I think pre-high school or early high school. And it had a few moments and images that stuck in my brain.
You say you saw it when you were in high school?
I can't remember exactly how old I was. I was either like a freshman or maybe in middle school. Maybe a sophomore. I don't know. But had you ever seen this before?
This was new to me.
So it is an R-rated comedy, drama, sports movie. Definitely a raunchy film. It's kind of an odd place tonally. I want to talk about it. I watched it twice. Once just the high-quality stream I could find online. And then I also sprung for the DVD and watched a couple of bonus features and then watched it again with the commentary, which is by the director, Brian Robbins. This is an interesting figure. Do you know who Brian Robbins is?
Enlighten me.
So he was a director for a handful of films, maybe a half dozen, including this one. And he was mainly active behind the scenes as a producer. And he kind of steadily rose up the ranks until he was like the CEO of Paramount for a few years. I think he's since resigned, but he was like, the equivalent of what's that guy's name? David Zaslav or whatever, but like for Paramount, like a head honcho that gets a lot of grief for being dumb about movies,
Gotcha. Speaking of that, we had, Emmys night the other night? Mm-hmm. And that show, The Studio, cleaned up. Which all along while it was airing, I was telling Dan, you got to watch this show. You got to watch this show, Dan. I don't think he's watched that show yet, but it's movies about making movies, Dan. It was pretty good. I thought it was funny, and they do a lot of long, extended, uncut takes that were well executed.
Yeah, I would definitely watch it. I just don't really watch much TV, and when I do, it's almost entirely with my wife. So I'd have to see if she's interested. But I imagine I would like it. So Varsity Blues has endured in the cultural memory for two things, Brian. One of which is the whipped cream bikini, and one of which is James Van Der Beek, who is from like the Northeast, I think. Connecticut is where he was born, and he just looks very Californian.
He's from Dawson's Creek.
That's right. We'll talk about that in a minute here. But he says, I don't want your life, in a ridiculous fake Texan accent that he uses throughout the whole film. He says, I've heard him say that's the thing that people most often say to him. Like, this is an actor thing, I think, that like once you've had one or two iconic roles, if someone sees you on the street, they may not even like say hi or like, oh, I'm such a big fan. They'll just shout one of your lines at you. So I think this is the one that James Van Der Beek gets.
So you said that line at the start. I don't even remember that. I don't remember when does he say it to his dad?
Yeah, that's your dream, Dad, not my dream scene. He says that to the dad.
Got it.
And it's not a particularly good or bad moment, but it's like it just really highlights how ridiculous his accent is in the film. Like full dramatic mode.
One of the times he was fighting with the dad was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, when it's like the cookout.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk about that for sure. So anyways, this film, yeah, it's the main reason I picked it now, Brian, is because it's high school football season.
Yes, it's a back-to-school movie, and this is the time of year when we get some back-to-school movies. Sometimes it overlaps with Halloween season, October, and we get like a double whammy back-to-school horror movie. The last 2 years we did that with Idle Hands and The Faculty. But definitely we got to have a movie like this at this time of year.
Well, we're going to have another one in the post-Scream bucket of horror films. That's become a tradition for me, is to select one of those. So I'll be picking one of those. I have, I think, 2 left that I've identified, so I'm running out of them, but we'll get one of those this spooky season. So Brian, we were both in the marching band, and how did you feel about being in the marching band and going to the football games with marching band? What's your, when you think of that, like, tell me the images and the sensations that you recall.
Right. So I did marching band sophomore through senior year. And the strong memories of the games specifically, I would usually get a nerd's rope at the concession stand. I'd go and get a nerd's rope at the halftime, and sometimes also a Dr. Pepper. I would often do the pep bands where we would go and play the away games. That was fun. What was the best marching band show that I was a part of? There was one that was like a mishmash of space stuff, because every marching band has to play Holst's The Planet. It's like a requirement. But we also, I think, had E.T. in there, and Superman, and something from like Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, cool.
It was just like anything remotely related to space. So that was a fun one. What about you? I know you've got some deep set memories of marching band.
Yeah, so one thing is, I was a big sports fan when I was that age, which is something that was not true for you. So I would have had more romantic attachment to the game itself, although I wasn't like really into high school football specifically. It was like I would cheer for our team and I'd be excited if we won and sad if we lost, but like I wouldn't be really obsessive about it. But I don't know. The games themselves did have a lot of appeal to me. And some of it is just like association with everything else going on during those times. And some of it is the games themselves. So a couple things about it. So one, fall, we've talked about like the best season, almost objectively the best season, you could say. I would imagine if you polled 1,000 people, you would get like probably 3/4 of them to say fall is the best season. And you and I would be among those, Brian.
Depends on how far a net you cast. If you're asking countries at the equator, they may have different opinions.
That's a good point.
Because they got different seasons.
Yeah. And some of that's cultural, for sure. And I think that's part of what it is, too, is the start of a new school year. You are meeting new people in new classes, new activities, these brand new social bonds being formed, new crushes. The weather's still nice. It's fun to be outside. It's in some ways it's like the prime of the year. It's like it feels there's just all this potential and enthusiasm that just kind of diminishes in the icy winter, and then the spring that just goes on until you're waiting to get to the end of the school year.
Yeah, you might say this is going to be my year.
And I think in particular the football games. So I always really liked homecoming weirdly, like, I don't know, homecoming, the idea is that people come back home, like alumni, people who are out of college or have moved away, you go back to your home for homecoming. But that was never really a major aspect of it for me. I did meet a couple of alumni at football games, but mainly through marching band. Like marching band alumni would come and I'd meet them that way.
Right. And I feel like it's more of a thing at colleges that happens.
Maybe. I don't know. I think it probably varies because we didn't have a strong athletic tradition at our school, Brian.
Our high school?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually have some specific football anecdotes from our high school to sprinkle into this episode. As I mentioned a few weeks back when we talked Space Jam, I actually was decently good friends with the lead high school quarterback my year. Like he chipped in a significant amount to my Indiegogo for my thesis film. So he's a good guy, and I will talk about him as we talk about what's his name in this movie, Lance Harbor. Our own resident Lance Harbor.
Or Jonathan Moxon. And I think the games, like the experience of them, it's kind of this, you're not really supervised. You can kind of just like hang out with your friends, and there is like, okay, the band director's there, but you're kind of free to, particularly in the third quarter when you're with the marching band, but like it's kind of like an uninhibited social experience in some ways. Maybe not uninhibited, but like I don't know, quite unregulated. It's just like you're not bound by the strictures of a school schedule and all that. It's just people just hanging out.
Less supervision. You've got a looser leash.
Yeah. And it's not during school hours. It's at night, which had an appeal to it. So I don't know. There is like not too many things in this world that I view as like almost sacred, the way that I kind of romanticize it. And high school football games during the fall are one of those things. And I don't like love football. In fact, I've got a lot of reservations about football, which I think we confront some of them in this film. And we'll talk about it. But
oh yeah, I've got an anecdote about that as well.
I was glad to spend some time like thinking about my own high school experience and also to see it from a distinct lens here.
Yeah, it also took me back to when we talked Over the Garden Wall really early on. That was one where you expressed your connection to fall football. Yeah.
That, like, one of the episodes, it's the only one that's, I mean, this is kind of a spoiler for Over the Garden Wall, so jump ahead 30 seconds if you haven't seen it. One of the later episodes is the only one that's, like, not in the quote-unquote unknown, and it's set at a high school football game and after party for most of its 10 minutes. And I always find that to be one of my favorite ones to watch whenever I revisit Over the Garden Wall.
Yeah, it's kind of the reveal. It's showing you what's really going on.
Right.
Although debatable how much of the unknown is real. They kind of leave that open-ended.
Yeah.
There were a lot of Wurts at the Renaissance Fair this year. Some with Greg's, but quite a few Wurts.
I feel like Over the Garden Wall is not diminishing in cultural cachet. I think it's increasing in cultural cachet.
They actually did like a 10-year special in 2024. Did you see that? It was just a short thing.
I think I might have even sent it to you. Wasn't it by Claymation? One of the Claymation, Aardman. I think Aardman did it.
Okay, you might have done. I saw it, and quite possible I saw it through you.
But anyways, yeah, it's not like I made the thing, so I don't need to take any credit for it or anything. But yeah, 10 years have gone by. So it's crazy that it's been 10 years since 2014. The years start coming and they don't stop coming.
If they stop coming and don't start coming, that's when you gotta be worried.
So one thing I learned in the director's commentary that I think is not surprising to me is that when this script was sold, it was passed around as if, hey, here's a raunchy teen comedy. But then when you read the script, it's got some dramatic elements to it. And the movie kind of, I wouldn't say full throttle, I would say like 50% maybe, leans into having a sort of ambivalent tone, like playing up the drama and the nostalgia and like the not broadly comic elements in the story, I guess.
Definitely. I struggled with how to categorize this on our big grid document. We got a column for genre, and it's just wide enough for one little word in there. And what do you think I settled on, Dan?
Comedy. Oh, sports.
Sports. It's a sports film. Let me dodge the whole issue. I didn't know whether to call it a comedy or a drama. Because the comedy, I mean, comedy is always subjective. It's like, does it actually make you laugh? There are gags. They're often very gross. But I actually found the tone fairly consistent in that it's like an equal mixture of, or like equal parts comedy to drama throughout. It's like 3 parts comedy to 1.5 parts drama, and it's that kind of throughout.
I think that's fair. I think it varies a little bit from scene to scene in ways that are sometimes almost jarring, but it's not like the first act is a drama and the second act is a comedy kind of situation. It's like it's alternating scene by scene, beat by beat. This one's a little more dramatic. You might have a little bit more comedy here. Oh, they're going to do a big raunchy thing. We haven't had a raunchy thing in 15 minutes, so we got to have one here, and that kind of stuff. So I think that's astute. I think it does indeed kind of feel the same at the beginning as it does in the middle, as it does at the end, which is to say it is indeed comic, but yeah, your ratio, I'm not sure how you landed on those numbers, but maybe 2-to-1 comedy to drama sounds about right.
Yeah, I think that is a better way of saying 3 to 1.5. 2-to-1, that sounds good. Simplify your fractions, folks.
So this is an MTV film. They produced it, and I guess Paramount distributes the MTV films, or did at this point.
I wondered about that. How many movies were distributed under the MTV brand? I'd never seen that before.
Oh, they talked about it in the commentary. I didn't look it up, but they definitely made several. I mean, I don't know, like dozens, maybe.
Dozens of us. Dozens.
They talked about how they really hated the MTV Studio banner, which is like this astronaut drifting, and then it's got like it pops in, and it's just very goofy and like doesn't really fit MTV at all to have like an astronaut floating through space as the logo.
Well, the MTV logo is that astronaut with the flag that says MTV, or at least it was for a long time.
Oh, you're right. I guess that makes sense. But yeah. The film opens with a monologue set to a montage. And it's like a weirdly beautiful montage. It's got like Texas sunsets with like, here's an oil refinery in the distance and a farm. I guess it probably wouldn't be an oil refinery. No. What would you have in Texas? Like
I mean, I don't know exactly what part of the process a refinery fills, but Texas definitely is known for oil, for sure. Haven't you seen There Will Be Blood?
I have not.
Okay. You should watch that one. It's got Paul Dano.
I like him.
And the other guy, the
Daniel
Lincoln.
Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
That's the one with I Drink Your Milkshake, right?
That's right.
Paul Thomas Anderson in the news because he has a new movie coming out starring Leo DiCaprio, and it's gotten insanely good reviews. It's at like 97 on Metacritic and 99 on Rotten Tomatoes or something.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Dan said, Paul Thomas Anderson is getting hype, and I can't tell anyone because you're the only person I know who likes Paul Thomas Anderson, he said to me. So sound off in the comments, listeners, if you like Paul Thomas Anderson.
That's an exaggeration, but in a couple of the film groups I follow, a Discord, as well as some writers I follow, are cold on P.T. Anderson for whatever reason, for a number of reasons. And I have liked every P.T. Anderson movie I've seen. I like Boogie Nights a lot. I know you do, Brian.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorites. I I actually did not realize that other movie I just mentioned was a Paul Thomas Anderson. Maybe I got to revisit that one. Maybe it'll get an episode someday.
And I like Licorice Pizza, which is it's like the most Dan Core-ass movie that you could possibly conceive of. It's like a nostalgia hangout film from the 70s.
This maybe is a good time to say I was so afraid that this movie, this week, was going to be a hangout where nothing happened, but that wasn't what it was.
No. I try to spare you from those, except in certain moments, Brian. Your opinions are well documented. And if you're a lifelong listener of The Goods, you know that Brian likes, for some strange reason, he likes narrative in his...
I like movies where something happens. And we have events in this film.
Not just events, but like an arc to the events. This movie follows James Van Der Beek playing Mox, who is the backup quarterback for a Texas football team. And that is indeed the thrust of that opening montage, by the way, which is in Texas, football is everything. It's the law of the land, basically. So you mentioned Van Der Beek as one of the stars of Dawson's Creek. In fact, I believe he is Dawson.
That's what I think too, but I've not seen the show. So I was wondering if you could confirm. That was my broad sense. This is Dawson.
I've seen like 1 or maybe 2 episodes of it. I think I would probably like it okay. I liked the chemistry that he had with Katie Holmes in the 2 episodes I watched, because that was her breakout too. But I have come to learn that that's only like a 1-season arc, and then they pivot to Katie Holmes being with the other guy. For whatever reason, that made me less, I don't know why, but that made me less interested in watching. But anyways.
I assumed there was a character named Dawson, but I wasn't completely certain. I thought Dawson's Creek might just be the place. Like, what about that other show, Melrose Place? Is there a Melrose?
Well, I think that's Melrose, not apostrophe S.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if there's a Melrose. But Dawson's Creek, notable, it was the show created by Kevin Williamson, who we've talked about a lot. He's the guy who wrote Scream. He wrote The Faculty. He was like this guy who kind of reignited teen horror with quippy, pop culture aware, sort of meta commentary jokes. And I think there's a lot of that, or at least there was envisioned to be a lot of that in Dawson's Creek. And he kind of created that. That was like what he cashed in his chips on for his success in Scream. Anyways, do you know James Van Der Beek?
You've heard the extent of my James Van Der Beek knowledge, other than I think there was a show more recently, I think it was The Bee in Apartment 23, and he played himself on that show, and they were always calling him James Van Der Beek, calling him by his full name.
Yes, because A, it's a great name to say all the way through, James Van Der Beek. B, you're exactly right. I was just going to bring this up. Don't trust the bee in Apartment 23. You nailed it. That show is very funny. And it ran for, I think, 2 seasons, and it was consistently funny throughout. It's also got Kristen Ritter in it.
Right. So I think I saw about half an episode of that show. So commend my ability to retain.
Well done. I definitely wouldn't have remembered that if I had just seen half an episode. But he plays like an exaggerated version of himself where he's like a jackass Hollywood movie star who happens to be friends with the other characters in the show. It's kind of like the Barney Stinson in How I Met Your Mother. Although in the sense that he's the asshole who's friends with everyone else. Not that Barney Stinson is a famous person. But he's unfortunately battling cancer right now. He's got like colorectal, which got to be brutal.
Yeah, that's not the one you want. You probably don't want any of them.
Yeah.
That's the one you get from eating too much pepperoni, they say. The cured meat that Dan is steering clear of. I think you got less chance of colorectal if you're avoiding the nitrates in preserved meat.
I think if you are going to have one, it's like Hodgkin's lymphoma is pretty much up there. It's like, I think 90+% of people go into remission after 1 round of treatment on that or something.
Oh, okay. So that's the one you're hoping for if we're drawing cancer straws.
If we're drawing cancer straws. You know, I'm not saying like let's You know what? I take it back. The cancer straw I draw is cancer cured. Nobody has cancer anymore. Hooray. That's the one that I draw, Brian. There we go.
We're canceling the straw draw. For reference, I would probably pick some kind of skin cancer that they could cut off, but maybe that's a bad choice.
Interesting.
Something that's on the outside to start with, but who knows? I'm not an expert. I'm not an oncologist.
Yeah.
Maybe we do an episode where we get an oncologist on the show.
Well, what's the good cancer? Tell us that one. Be a great interview. But the starting quarterback is, yes, Lance Harbor. There's some good character names in this. I like Lance Harbor.
Yeah, so Lance Harbor is introduced. He, walks by himself on a billboard. And you just know that this is the hometown hero. And everybody is swooning at Lance Harbor's presence. He's like the Brom Bones.
And he's played by Paul Walker, who, R.I.P., in the Fast and Furious movies. He's probably, I don't know how old the actor was here, probably early 20s. Just outrageously handsome, insanely good-looking man.
Yeah, like a walking Greek statue.
Yeah, you look at this guy and you're like, oh, he's obviously the most popular person in school.
And the name also had me thinking of Vance Handsome from Splitting Atom. Maybe perhaps they were inspired by Lance Harbor.
We got to do a name Hall of Fame someday, Brian. Meat and what were the other ones we were talking about? Stork, yeah. That would be an interesting category to add to our awards each 50 episodes is best character names.
That's right. We've started to brainstorm what is 250 going to be, but it's still a ways away. That's the difference between the early days when we would review every 25, but it got to a point where that was just too frequent. So 50 is a good benchmark. That's once a year.
And the head coach of the team is Bud Kilmer, played by Jon Voight, who is just a raging asshole these days. I mean, I say that at least partially because his politics are very right-wing and I am not very right-wing, but I think he's also just an asshole too.
Yes, he's part of Trump's commission on Make Hollywood Great Again, alongside I think, was it Sylvester Stallone? I don't know. Jon Voight is definitely the head, though.
Yeah, and because he's unrepentant about. He's not just someone who happens to be right wing. He's made it his identity, and sometimes if you're very publicly right wing, a lot of that comes to be negative about certain things, and so he comes across as a very negative person to me.
Right, and one of the top reviews on Letterboxd says Jon Voight plays, quotation marks, a racist. I actually was thinking of Holes the whole time.
Oh, I forgot he's in Holes.
That was my touch point, is he plays the villainous. He's not the warden. He's the second in command of the juvenile detention center in Holes. But he gets to make a lot of speeches like this where he's glaring at kids. Right.
And I know I just badmouthed him. He's really, really good in this. He's so good at being, he just completely embodies the good old boy football coach without making him too much of a cartoon, but making him just a terrible villain. You hate him so much. And he's my favorite performance in the movie.
He's Angelina Jolie's father, which is something I didn't know for a long time.
Really? Real life father?
Yeah, really, he's her dad.
Huh.
So you're learning that now.
You know what? That rings a bell now that you say it. I think I remember seeing her listed as a Nepo baby, but I definitely didn't put two and two together this week as I was watching that.
No, it's surprising. I mean, I wouldn't gather it. They got different last names or stage names.
Their faces kind of have similar structures, similar shapes.
Have you, Dan, ever seen the movie Full Metal Jacket? I think this is one I've asked about before.
I have not seen Full Metal Jacket, no.
Okay, so I saw various parallels to Full Metal Jacket in this movie. Several characters lined up with characters in that movie. And Jon Voight was making me think of the Arlie Ermy drill instructor.
Okay, he doesn't play him, but he's kind of like him?
Yeah, it's not the same actor, but it's just the scary commander who's hard on people.
Gotcha. And so, like, one thing that we learn is basically the football team runs smoothly. He's a good coach, and therefore he's like the most important man in town. He's like I don't know what the equivalent would be, like the mayor, essentially. Everybody defers to him.
Dan, have you seen the show Friday Night Lights?
So I have not. No.
Okay, did that show have any connection to this movie? I just ask. I have also not seen that show, other than I remember when it first started out, and I think it's about high school football in Texas and how it like dominates the whole culture.
It is very much about that. And it's like, I think what you mentioned at one point not too long ago, it might have just been on the Discord you brought it up. A podcast episode we recorded before we actually had a podcast, Brian. When I would literally just hit record and then post it as a WordPress post on our old website, our old blog. And one of the ones we talked about was things you haven't seen. And I haven't listened to it in many years, and I'm not really interested in listening to it because I cringe at listening to my old self.
Yeah, we had a funny exchange in the Discord. I mean, anybody who's listening to this probably already in the Discord, but don't be afraid of your past self, Dan. Although maybe there's something to that, to evolving, to growing. I wouldn't know, but I definitely I'm like Dr. Manhattan. I exist at all moments at once. The past persists.
Anyways, that podcast episode, I remember one of the prompts was like something that you feel like you ought to have seen. And we might have even done shows specifically. And I had Friday Night Lights at the top of the list because there's every indication I'll like that show. Great reviews, supposed to be like a little bit sentimental, a little bit soap opera-y, a little bit dramatic, a little bit fun. That sounds right up my alley.
I wondered if it might be like an American Graffiti to Happy Days situation. Where
interesting.
It's almost the movie, the show, but not totally, not legally.
Well, I mean, if any movie was going to become the TV show, I think it would be the movie entitled Friday Night Lights, Brian. There was a movie, Friday Night Lights, that came out.
Was there?
In like 2004 or something like that.
Well, TIL, Dan.
And that's a decent movie, too. It's more sportsy than this, less teen comedy than this.
We're both learning things here tonight.
We kind of gather the dynamic of this team. There's a handful of players. I mean, a football team is like, Rudy, they brought up the numbers. It's like 55 players on a starting roster or something like that. But as far as this movie is concerned, there's like 6 people on the team.
It's like Miss Frizzle's class. If you make it a TV show, you got to minimize. Like, realistically, an American 1990s classroom would have like 25 people, but you can only really get to know 8 of them.
Right. And so the main people that we meet, so we have James Vanderbeek, the backup quarterback. His whole thing is like, honestly, not the best defined, I gotta say. And that was one of the things that bugged me about this movie is, what's his deal? Like, he's smart, I guess. He's like reading books, and he's like also kind of disenchanted with the high school football scene. But also he's like, I'm going to go to Brown, and I like reading Kurt Vonnegut instead of looking at my plays for practice.
Right. So this guy was like the main character of Full Metal Jacket. In Full Metal Jacket, the protagonist is this guy who goes by the call sign Joker, and it's like he's too enlightened for the army. He's in the army, but he's like smarter and thinks of himself as a part of, or apart from that.
Yeah. I guess that's it. Maybe I'm just too High School Musical brained, but I needed what's the other thing he's into? Like Zac Efron.
He needs to try out for the musical.
Yeah. Or like, I don't know, maybe he's really into some other activity, but I guess not. Another one is, we talked about Lance Harbor. Notably, you would be very easy to write a version of this story where Lance Harbor is an a-hole, but he's depicted as nice in this. And actually kind of like quiet, kind of reserved. He's not like the center of attention, like you could easily write the star quarterback, handsome fella. You also have Billy Bob. So one thing I like about Billy Bob, so he's a very fat guy. Let me look up the actor's name here. It is Ron Lester, who, not the biggest name, but he really slimmed down, Brian. So that talked about that in the commentary. The commentary was recorded on the 10-year anniversary of the movie, so not like right when the movie came out on DVD, but 10 years later. And they were saying when they recorded this, Ron Lester was over 500 pounds, and now he's under 200 pounds.
Wow. I would not have guessed 500, but he's a big guy. And so in Full Metal Jacket, Dan, there's a fat guy in the platoon in the boot camp class, and he's the one who gets it the worst from the mean drill instructor. And he kind of ends up going crazy as the movie goes along.
Oh, man. Sounds like there are a lot of parallels. Another one is we have Scott Kahn playing Charlie Tweeter. Just goes by Tweeter. And he's like the silver tongue.
The sex pest.
That too, yeah. Always got something witty and obnoxious to say, something terrible to do, and yes, he is a sex pest. And I want to talk about things that have aged strangely in this film. Absolutely. And that is, the sexual politics are very much in that camp. And then lastly, we have, I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't sound too jaded, the token black victim of racism who can get saved by our hero. It's not exactly that, but it's also not too much more than that. And this actor's name, Eliel Swinton, E-L-I-E-L is the first name. And he's kind of friends with them too. So we usually see him hanging out with everybody else. And I am a little playing up the fact that it tries to make James Van Der Beek into a white savior. It at least, like, it definitely points him out as, like, being sympathetic to him. But the whole thing we learn is that, like, systemically, his contributions are minimized. And so he has to do a lot of his own self-promotion for recruiting and stuff. And his mom, like, is calling the HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities, to try and get scouts out to the game and stuff. And I think those are the main players that we hang out with, Brian. Just enough so you kind of got like a handful of different personalities.
Right.
And then there are two main teen women characters. His girlfriend at the start is played by Amy Smart, who is a blonde, but she is made brunette here, which they did because they talked about this in the commentary. A, they wanted the two actresses to look more distinct, and B, they wanted a girl next door vibe, and blonde doesn't really scream girl next door vibe. She's also written as Lance Harbor's little sister, but they even said this. I was going to guess this, even if they didn't say it in the commentary. That feels like something that was from an earlier draft. I get the sense that in an earlier draft, there was more conflict between the two quarterbacks, whereas here they're like largely supportive of each other.
Yeah, it only really comes up in like one scene that there's tension because she's the sister.
And I'll go out and say that I didn't really like or get this character the same way that I didn't entirely. I felt like James Van Der Beek needed one more layer or one more of definition. It's like she's kind of also the smart one who's detached. But she's also kind of like the sarcastic, quippy brunette. And I didn't quite get. And then she's also kind of mean to him a lot. I was like, what's the deal? Is she going to be like redeemed, or are we going to learn that, oh, wait, no, we're going to subvert the expectation here and not end up with the hometown girl next door?
Right. So this is another reference that I don't know if it's smart or dumb because I haven't seen the show. I got Daria vibes. Is that on brand at all? Where it's like the smart, aloof character.
No, there's a little bit there. Yeah, I've seen some Daria. I actually only watched it for the first time this past year. I watched like 3 or 4 episodes because Hunter Allen, who writes Kinemolog movie reviews, has spoken highly of the show in some of his reviews. I was like, I'll give it a try at some point because I wanted something dumb to stream for like 20 minutes. And there's a little bit of that. Daria's even more detached and aloof than this character is. Her name is Jules, by the way. The other main female character is Allie Larder, playing a character named Darcy Sears. And she is the blonde here, and she's actually a pretty interesting character. And then she just drops off in the middle of the film and makes like one appearance the rest of the movie, which is disappointing because I actually thought she was good in this. And she seemed like your type, Brian. Would you find her very attractive?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's very hot. Absolutely. But like that's kind of the way that she is presented, is like she is the very hot one and is going to be the temptation for, again, yeah, like you said, up till the halfway point. There's like a pivot point in the movie. Right.
And it happens at like a weird time. Yeah, it happens like at the halfway point where you'd think it would be like in the climax. The whole romantic plot, I felt, is a little undercooked, and I would have liked a little more romantic soap opera-y stuff in here, but that's all right. It's a lean hour, 40-minute movie, so I think it's okay that they left a couple things on the cutting room floor. And so those are kind of the main forces here. The movie opens as they're getting ready for a game day, and here's where we also meet the family. And if you want to talk about undercooked subplots that I would have just loved to see developed and like what on earth were they thinking, there's this thing that happens like 4 times where his brother is like, I don't even know how you describe what his little brother is. So he's like in 8th grade or something like that. And he's like trying out different religions in very intense ways.
Right. He's, seeking a transcendental religious experience.
And I don't know how this got connected to this movie. It doesn't make sense. I think it's like satirizing the intense religiosity of the South to some extent, but it's mostly like, why are you having like a joke about an 8th grader starting a cult in this movie about high school football?
Yeah, it kind of feels like something that the screenwriter wrote as a short that never got made and thought, well, now I can use this.
I think it would have been interesting if they had made it like even more prominent as like this weird counterpoint to everything else going on in the football world. But no.
One of the religions he tries is like Nation of Islam, like specifically black Muslim, but he's this little white boy. And he's got the like Malcolm X garb.
And then the dad, who they did a good job of making you just want to punch this dad in the face. So first of all, he's got terrible hair. You've talked about this before, Brian. It's like at some point you got to let it go.
You got to embrace, you got to shave. He's got the widow's peak where it's like very thin and spongy.
Yeah, his hairline has receded to a point where it's like directly in the center of the top of his head. So you have like a half of a bald head with like a little ugly patch, and then you have the back full head of hair. And it's not a good look for anyone, but it does scream annoying dad, I guess.
And it fits what his thing is he's like a washed up high school football star who's living through his son.
Yes.
He's like the male equivalent of a stage mom.
So I really like this. I think this movie does a really good job with you've called it the Glory Days by Bruce Springsteen theme. I would have thought of that. I like that connection. I really like that song. Of what do you do
if you peaked in high school?
When high school football is what the whole culture is built around, and then you're still in the culture, but you're not playing high school football anymore. But you did at one point. Where do you go from there? And like, I think that's part of why the James Van Der Beek plot, even though I was saying it needed a little bit more, why it ultimately does actually work is enough for the character, because you see all of the stuff that happens if you don't get out of the vortex, you know?
Right. Can you get out of the town? And what really made it work for me is, so we also see Lance Harbor's dad. And Lance Harbor's dad has also got this dynamic where he's living through his son, except he's a little bit handsomer. He's got a little bit more hair. And so he's got this leverage over Mr. Moxon. And it builds into this scene at this cookout where they're eating, barbecue burgers behind the house, and they get into this argument, and just the editing of it was really good. And the barbs that they're trading, because it's stupid stuff. Like, they're literally doing the Back to the Future or The Room. Oh, you're chicken.
Right.
But like, you can feel the heat building. And it builds into, like, actual fisticuffs.
This is a great scene. It comes about 20 minutes into the film. So the movie opens with mostly just kind of setting the dynamics. We meet the characters. They have a football game. They win because they're a good football team. They have a party. Parties are a big part of this movie, too. And, yeah, so we're at this cookout. And I just want to say... You called out the editing. So this movie's directed by Brian Robbins, who's not known as a good director. And he directed Good Burger. He also directed Norbit and Meet Dave. Like, this genuinely might be his most acclaimed film here.
Wow.
He also did The Perfect Score, which is a very goofy movie. Are you familiar with this one, Brian?
So, vaguely. I think that's one of those ones that I saw the trailer and thought, someday I'm going to have to watch this. But that's the one where they do like a heist to cheat on the SAT, right?
Exactly. It's essentially a PG-13 DCOM with the premise of we're going to heist the SAT so we can memorize the answers, so we can get our SAT scores... like, get good scores on them so we can go to whatever college we want. And there's a few leaps you got to make for any of that to make sense. But the insane thing about that movie is the cast, Brian. It stars Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson. It also has Matthew Lillard in it. And I guess those are the three big names. But, like, for this kind of throwaway MTV movie, pre-Marvel, Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans... And then, yeah, Matthew Lillard is the wild card in there.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty certain that was one where I watched the trailer and never actually the film itself.
So anyways, the point is, Brian Robbins, not known as a good director, and based on the commentary, it sounds like he doesn't view himself as like a technical film guy. He was talking about how he's like, I don't really know exactly what to tell them to do, but I know how to tell them how it should feel. So that makes me wonder if, like, the credit actually belongs to the cinematographer, this guy named Chuck Cohen, who has not actually shot that many movies, and certainly not too many movies of note. But whatever it is, this movie's got, like, real camera direction. Like, canted angles and, like, interesting compositions. And, like, there's tracking shots. It was like a dumb comedy from 1999. Why are they doing, like, low-angle tracking shots of a guy running down a field? You had to do, like, weird reflections. There's, like, a super intense dolly zoom in the scene that you're talking about, Brian.
That's right. They did the whole Vertigo thing.
And I was like... to be fair, I've also been, like, watching a lot of YouTube videos about film theory and, like, different shots and why they're used and how. And so, like, I'm looking for it right now. But I mean, I'm not going to go out and say, like, this is like a masterpiece of cinematic craft, but it's also, like, more cinematic than you would probably guess a high school comedy from 1990 to be. Doing more interesting stuff with the editing and the camera work and stuff. And yes, so yeah, they're like egging on James Van Der Beek at this cookout. And like they're doing the William Tell thing where like you put something on your head. So I think they're putting beer cans on their head. And the quarterbacks are taking turns throwing the football to get the beer can off their head, and he chucks it straight at his dad's face rather than actually hitting the can. And so we see him with a black eye for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and so up to this point, I didn't really know what Moxon's position on the team was. I didn't really find out until later that, he's a backup quarterback once we reach a point where they need a backup quarterback. But the dad is like down on Moxon's abilities. Stand up for yourself, Mox. Show what you can really do. And I didn't know what he could do. But it comes to light that he is actually a very good football player. He can throw the ball real good.
Yeah.
So this is like intentional that he's hitting the dad in the face.
Oh, yeah. So we are the audience to take that he did it on purpose. But because there's like one cue during the football game that he's a terrific thrower. He like tosses it across the field casually to the ref or something like that.
And he has this repeated beat where he will bean the mascots on the other team.
Yeah, which is not a real thing in football, by the way.
You're not allowed to do that? They frown on that?
Not only are you not allowed to do that, but like he's trying to stop the clock. And there is like a very designated way you do that. You just spike the ball down. You throw the ball at the ground. That's ends the play and it stops the clock. And it's allowed. If you threw the ball at a mascot to stop the clock, you get like an intentional grounding penalty and an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Like that's not something you do, especially like there's like it pays off because one of the last ones, the mascot is not like a fuzzy guy, but like an actual person riding a horse. And so he throws it at the mascot and the guy falls off the horse, which is it's a well set up payoff. It has no relationship to real football though.
I think, does UVA have a guy on a horse as their mascot? I feel like they had a cavalier.
Yeah, they do have that. They also have a guy in a plushy thing, but they do have at football games, a guy on a horse too.
Okay, I think once in my life I was at, maybe he came to William & Mary, I don't know. But I saw that at some point in my existence.
By the way, Brian, speaking of the cookout scene, when they're doing this whole montage of like close-ups on the people who are taunting him, and it's like, again, it's low angle, so you're getting the sky, and they're like spittles coming out of their mouth as they're taunting him. Did you see who played Lance Harbor's little brother?
I missed it.
It's Jesse Plemons.
Oh my God.
It's a little baby face Jesse Plemons.
Married to Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah. In many things these days.
You know what he was in, Dan?
Breaking Bad.
He was in Breaking Bad.
He's also in this Yorgos Lanthimos movie that's about to come out. Bugonia, or I don't even know how you're supposed to say it. I've just seen it written. Bugonia. Begonia.
I also was curious about that. I don't know what it is. Just I saw the title.
He stars in it, and he apparently is. There, people are thinking he's going to be in the mix for a Best Actor nomination this year. But he's had nominations before. Anyways, another interesting thing that's kind of going on here is Billy Bob gets knocked around a whole lot in this movie. He's like on the line and he gets a concussion and the coach makes him go back in. And there's also this thing where Lance is like getting injections in his knee because the coach needs him to play because he's the star quarterback. And yeah, the turning point comes at about the half-hour point when Lance gets tackled, because what happens is Billy Bob, who's suffering from a concussion, like collapses in the middle of a play. We like get some POV shots where like it's effects to like make it look like he can't see straight, and then he falls down to the ground. So by the end of the movie, it's not clear that the movie knows that like this guy's essentially ruined his life doing this. But like today we would know that. We would know that Billy Bob has like damaged his brain with CTE, most likely. And like, it's not something that, it's just now better. It's like, this will haunt him with, it doesn't happen to every single person, but like a lot of people who even just through high school, get smacked around a lot in football games, have like lifelong depression and like memory problems. And this is like a major problem for the NFL because thousands of its alumni are like going through severe mental health issues and like dementia and stuff as they get older.
Yeah. So this was kind of brutal. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't like it, but that's the point. Is it's supposed to squick you out and make you upset. I was wondering, Dan, have you ever had a concussion?
So in middle school, my trumpet case fell and hit me in the head. And I went to the nurse's office and told her that. And she said, "Does your head hurt?" And I said, "Yes, my trumpet fell on it." And she said, "Well, you might have a concussion." And I went home for the day. So I don't think I actually had a concussion, but I did like one time that thing happened. I never had another symptom of it. So I'm guessing it wasn't actually a concussion. But what about you, Brian?
So in 2021, when I was skiing, I fell and hit my head and like saw like black spots in my vision in a way that I have never had before or since. And my neck got really stiff for like 3 days. So I feel like something probably happened there. But I mean, I'm walking and talking today, so I'm okay. But that was the hardest I've ever had my bell rung, as they say in Baby Driver.
Yeah, concussions are no joke.
Or what do they say? He's got a hum in his drum.
Oh, man. And it's scary because when you get it, like, some people never really have another symptom of it. And some people get, like, what do you call it? LSDs at flashbacks or something like that?
Right.
Like, you get long symptoms that can, like, sneak up on you years later. So, and I don't know if they always know exactly how or why those things happen. I'm sure they know more than they did 15 years ago, but I'm not an expert on it, but I've always been told you don't mess around with that stuff. Which we did not know as well, or at least we did not market as well in 1999. And so it's like not, I don't know. I feel like the ending would be played a little bit differently. Although, I don't know, it kind of does. It's like 48 minutes for the next 48 years is a phrase that gets used. And so that does kind of like suggest, yeah, you're putting everything out there right now, essentially like investing in the rest of your, like, it's what you're going to be looking back on for the rest of your life. So like put everything, including your health, into it, you know? And so that kind of adds like an ambivalence to this film because it's not just nostalgia and heroics. It's like the dark side of being at a place where football is the way of life that everyone cares about. And so the football players are gods who can't be touched. So, because let's talk about a couple other things that happened, Brian. So there's a lot of like dumb partying scenes. And there's one thing there's one where Scott Caan's character steals a cop car while he's drunk and drives away with it. And then when we see him later, he gets out of the car and he's naked and has multiple naked women with him. Which apparently, by the way, was like a Scott Caan invention. He was like, I have this idea. Apparently, like the day before they were going to film. What if we're all naked? Let's do that. And the director was like, But they shot it. Apparently, they shot it both with clothes and without clothes. And it got past the censors, the MTV censors. So they included the naked cut.
Yeah, the cops in this movie are deferential to the football players.
Right, because they're at a bar and they're like, man, I don't know. It feels like we're letting those kids get away with too much. And the coach overhears them and is like, my kids aren't giving you trouble, are they? And they're like, no. And it made me laugh a little bit. Another thing is whether it's fake IDs or whether nobody just questions them, they can get into bars and get booze whenever they want. In fact, there's one funny scene where James Vanderbeek goes to a convenience store. He's like, I'd like to buy this Coke, he says to the convenience store guy. And the convenience store is like, your money's no good here. And then gives him a 6-pack of beer from behind the counter. It's like, you can't. What if I just wanted a Coke? What if I didn't want a beer? Give me the Coke instead.
I wonder, was this taking place in 1999, do you think?
I do think it was contemporary. Yeah. But I think that's a good point. We've talked about this. I don't know if there's a phrase for it, but like it could be anywhere from like the 1970s to the start of the cell phone era, because kids aren't on devices, but there's like TV and I don't know. I do think you're right that, or what you were alluding to there, which is that it doesn't have a very strong sense of time. The most that we get from a sense of time is the soundtrack. It's a very 1999 soundtrack. There's this Foo Fighters song that gets used in the climax that is apparently a staple of sports movies these days, and like pump up at the stadiums and such. One other plot thread that's going on is they have this teacher. I don't even know what subject she's supposed to teach, but the main lesson that we see her give is the sex ed class. And she's like this woman who is like the kind of teacher that you always see in movies when they want to have a fantasy about the attractive teacher. And the sex ed scene is actually pretty funny. And I had mentioned there was a couple things that stuck in my brain about this. And the sex ed scene is one of them. It's got this very weird joke where she's like, all right, we don't use slang in sex ed, so let's talk about the slang that we don't use. Like, okay, well, why are we talking about the slang we don't use if the whole point is we're not going to? But whatever, that's the way she sets up this class. So can anybody tell me the slang for an erection? And the James Van Der Beek character has like 20 words for erection that are increasingly ridiculous. And the very last one is just Pedro. And the teacher's like, Pedro? And the delivery of this actually made me laugh pretty hard, Brian. We do get a payoff on this teacher. There's like, what's going on with that teacher? What's her deal, is what they say a couple times. Because she drives around an expensive car. Does she have some sort of secondary means of income? But then later in the movie, they go to a strip club. And at the strip club, one of the strippers is their sex ed teacher. Not just that, but she does like a naughty teacher strip dance routine. And I always feel bad for the women who get ogled at in the nude in movies. And especially like if they're not established, you know, they're just like, they were cast essentially because they were attractive and willing to get naked on screen.
Well, Dan, get ready for my next pick is all I'm going to say.
Oh, boy. So, yes, that was... I think we've hit all of the things that were my distinct memories from this. We had the weird sex ed class with all the words for boner. We had the teacher's actually a stripper. And we had the whipped cream bikini, which I guess we didn't actually say what that was. But once Lance Harbor's girlfriend starts hitting on James Van Der Beek, she's like, she invites him over, not leaving any doubt about her intentions, like changing in front of him too. And it's like, oh, you should come over to my house. And he goes over and she's like, do you want an ice cream sundae? And he says, no. And she says, yes, you do. He's like, okay. And she goes and gets the ice cream sundae. She's like, do you want whipped cream? And he says, yeah. And she comes out, and then whipped cream is covering her naughty bits with cherries at the center of her breasts. And apparently you can't really do this with whipped cream because it like dissolves and melts very quickly. So this is actually shaving cream.
Oh, it was shaving cream. I thought it was just like a costume, like plastic foam rubber or something. Like, you know, the fake food that they put out on the counter at diners to give the impression, oh, this is food.
Oh, interesting. I think in the commentary they said it was shaving cream.
But you're probably right. You watched the commentary, see. So the way that they present this character is she is not a gold digger exactly, but like she's after the prestige. Whoever the head football player is, that's who she is going to be with.
Gotcha, yeah.
So as soon as Harbor got ran over, the big guy, Billy Bob, collapsed, and so everybody plowed through and trampled Vance Harbor, and he's like mangled. He's like Marsalis in Ben-Hur. He's just a wreck of limbs. and he's laid up in the ward. So Moxon gets promoted. So now Moxon's the big wheel.
Right. So this is the big inciting incident. So thank you for actually bringing it in now. I just kind of talked around it. But yes, he does get promoted because Lance Harbor, Paul Walker, I liked your description there. He's mutilated. And it's not just like, oh, he hurt his knee, but they're like, it's like sad trumpets going off in the background. It's like, in a war movie, he would have just like lost his limb or something like that, you know, or been paralyzed from the waist down.
So this is where I have a Bo Pritchett anecdote.
All right.
The quarterback when I was a senior, maybe also a junior. I think it was senior year, but I could be wrong.
By the way, Bo Pritchett, very, very nice guy. Always liked Bo Pritchett. He was on the bus with me. Cool dude. I hope wherever he is in life these days, he's doing well because he was very kind to me in high school. And he really reminded me of the guy in Dazed and Confused, Pink, who is like also the talented quarterback, but like is just super nice and everybody likes him. So anyways, also kind of looks like him too. But
yeah, he reminds me of young Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know. I think he's got a similar face to when Mark Wahlberg was a young guy, like in Boogie Nights. But yes, good dude, solid guy. Anyway, there was a big game, I think our senior year. And somehow, I would have to watch the replay. I don't know how this happened, but he fell on the ball in such a way that it like wedged up under his rib cage and burst his spleen.
Oh my gosh.
So he was injured real bad, and he was in the hospital for like 2 weeks. And we weren't sure if it was like touch and go. We weren't sure what his situation was. But everybody was like united in concern for Bo. And the football players, this was the era of the Lance Armstrong, Livestrong bands that people would wear on their wrists for various causes. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, very well.
And so they made Spleen Strong bands. And the S in Spleen was the Shrek S with the little green ears.
Now, this would be a great memento. Do you still have this, Brian?
So I should ask Bo if these are around. It was mostly
Spleen
the football
Strong.
players, and I myself, surprise, perhaps, was not a football player, but my connection, my in, was I was pretty good friends with Bo. We went on the trip to Greece together sophomore year, and we drunk Smirnoff Ices on Mykonos together.
That's pretty funny. I desperately want a Spleen Strong wristband now.
I did find at one point in my Facebook memories a memory from like 2008 where he messaged me, presumably from the hospital, and it said, "Please make me and ask me about my Spleen t-shirt. You know that I will wear it." And I actually like, I cried a little bit reading that Facebook memory because it was funny, but it also reminded me of that moment that we were all worried, and he's a good dude.
Yeah.
Don't want him to perish of a ruptured spleen.
No, and that sounds like just a really gnarly, just gross, horrible injury. Like, ugh. Even saying ruptured spleen just makes me want to gag. Well, I have not kept up with him whatsoever since I graduated high school. But I hope he is well, and I hope he's still a good guy. I'm sure he is.
I believe he is. And he's making it through life, spleen or no spleen.
Spleen or no spleen. Amen to that. There's our episode title, Spleen or no spleen. So another thing with the James Vanderbeek character is that he has, like, even though he's not really interested in football, he's like it's the kind of the equivalent of like a kid who's already read the textbook. So he knows it as well as the teacher does, or better than the teacher. So it's not that when he doesn't pay attention in class, it's not that he's not learning anything, but it's that he's already smarter than he needs to be. And so the coach, Jon Voight, is like, "We're going to go in and you're going to do that run and play." Now you got to go do the running play over and over again. But he's like, no, I want to run these. He has these names for these different plays that he wants to run.
Right, he's got these like rogue secret plays that he'll issue to the team and piss the coach off, which, does that happen? I don't know. It seems like it wouldn't.
No, it very much doesn't. The funniest thing is he's like, what play are you going to run? And he says, it's a secret. So a quarterback would never say this to the coach. This would just not happen because the rest of the team's got to know it. It's like a thing you got to practice. It's like a routine, you know? It's not like you can just like, oh, I've got like a secret weapon that you just use. Like, I don't know, like a magic spell up your sleeve, like a trick ace. Because you got to get the whole team to buy in and you practice these things.
It's like the deep state or something. Like they're fragging the coach. I don't know. It's like they got this secret operation planned.
Maybe, yeah. It's because it's very bizarre. But he's like, he wants to do more passing. Because that's his thing, is he's got a great arm. So that's kind of like an undercurrent to all of this. And another important thing is that just, I kind of mentioned this already, but the coach is just a villain. He's mean in every way. He like pushes his players through injuries. He's racist. He like stops giving the ball to the black kid so that Lance Harbor gets all the touchdowns and all the recruiting. He picks on Billy Bob so much. And I actually like this performance by this actor who played Billy Bob because he's got to be like the clown and he leans into the clown stuff. But he also, quite honestly, has the most dramatic material in the film. Like he has this breakdown where he's like, what value do I bring to this world? I'm just a big, fat, dumb guy that even my coaches don't like. They've been picking on me this whole time.
Right, and he talks about, like, this is the main cultural element of this town. It's like what everything is built around. And so it's not just high school that they spend on this. It's like their whole life getting ready to do this.
And I don't know, like, Ron Lester acts the crap out of it. He doesn't leave it on the field, to use a football saying. He leaves it all out there. Wait, no, it's the opposite. He leaves it all on the field. That's what it is.
And so I kind of already said, but the big guy in Full Metal Jacket who's pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, eventually he snaps. And spoilers for the halfway point of Full Metal Jacket, but he actually like steals a rifle and kills the drill instructor.
Oh man.
So that's like the switch flip at the center of the movie. And then Joker is the smart, aloof guy, has to go on having witnessed that.
Wow.
That doesn't happen in Varsity Blues, but it's close.
So I want to talk a little bit about things that have aged strangely, or you might say poorly, but I feel like the movie is aware of the problematic nature of these things, at least a little bit. It doesn't like fully comment on them. It just kind of puts them out there. So we talked about there's like a lot of drunken debauchery, and we talked about the CTE and the head injury. But yes, another thing is the sex pest element. Like one of the main characters, his thing is he really likes to get women drunk, and he makes a lot of jokes about it. And in fact, at one point he like has a monologue about the exact dosages of drugs you can use to essentially date rape them. And this is like, oh, it's like a boys will be boys almost, but like also they're like, I think James Vanderbeek says, you're going to go to prison someday, dude. But like as a punchline, not as like a condemnation really. So this is kind of awkward. It's not a major point, but it definitely stands out as something that would be framed differently in 2025 post Me Too.
Right. And there is also a gag where he gets like gonorrhea or genital warts or something.
Yeah, he like looks at his member and is like, "Whoa, what is that bump?" or something. I forget exactly what he says. Yeah. So there's at least a little bit of comeuppance. There inevitably has to be a game that goes badly and everybody spirals. So the game that goes badly is the night after they go to the strip club and everybody's hungover. And this might be the most impressively filmed sequence. It's like a montage of them getting beat the crap up. And like, again, just shout out to whether it was this director or the cinematographer. It's like cool slow-mo shots.
Yeah, it's all these slow-mo heavy hits that they're taking, and somehow all of them are like 6 feet in the air when they get hit. So I wonder how they filmed these. Like if they launched them out of something, or they dropped them, or what the setup was to get them so high off the ground when they're getting whacked.
And this montage, it goes on for like a whole song. I think it's set to Thunderstruck, the AC/DC song, as they're getting knocked around. And I mean, it's obviously a low point for the characters, but a high point for the filmmaking. One anecdote, Brian, you talked about the filming of the football scenes. So they shot this for, I think if I remember correctly, and my notes are correct here, they shot for 8 weeks total. And 3 of those weeks were specifically the football scenes. So they had to invest a significant portion of time to the football scenes. But they actually did shoot most of this movie on location in Texas. And it is actually a high school. And most of the places that we see around town are actual examples of those buildings. Like the strip club was actually a nightclub or gentleman's club or something. And like they go to a fast food place. It was a real fast food place, etc. So I think it does have some of that like authentic flavor, like of being high school football in Texas. And then we get the grand finale, and the grand finale is kind of strange. So it is, of course, a football game, and James Van Der Beek needs to win the district title. So I think it's the district title game. Although there was like a line that threw me off that I didn't quite understand. It was something like, if you lose this game, you can't go to the playoffs and you can't go to states, or something like that.
Right, I think he did say that. So I guess we're not at states yet. It's just, this is an important one. And there's like 10 arcs that need to pay off in this scene. There's so many arcs to be resolved here, and they all get resolved. But so one is that the main dude, Van Der Beek, got into Brown, so he's like ostensibly set. Doesn't have to worry about this. But then Mr. Villain Coach Jon Voight says, a word from your coach can override good grades. He's like, I can sink your chances, which I wonder what he could actually say. But that's the threat. And so now actually Van Der Beek does have to be invested. And there's like every character has something that's riding on this game.
Right.
Because the black guy has the gotta stand out, gotta have the chance to stand out to the scout.
Yeah, he's got to score a touchdown because that's how he'll get into college, him personally. And the coach won't let him do it, so James Van Der Beek has to figure out a way to get the black guy a touchdown as the quarterback. And I'm glad you brought up that grade thing. I was going to mention that. So, yeah, this is kind of goofy, but I will say I bought it for this movie specifically because it's laid so much groundwork for the football rules everything. So it can like even break the law. So like, yeah, you don't want to mess with football culture. So even though that sounded kind of fake, like the football coach tells a teacher to give a kid a bad grade. Like, what the hell? It's like, no, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. But it felt like it would be something at least that I would be afraid of if I were James Van Der Beek. I wouldn't want to call his bluff on that one because you don't know. And
so other things are building too, because the villain's got to get comeuppance. That's another arc. And so something he does is the player, you said the actor is Allele. What's the character's name? We feel like we're just calling him the black guy, which is reductive.
Right.
And kind of goes against the point of the movie.
Wendell.
But he gets hurt a little bit. Not as bad as Lance Harbor, but he gets hurt a little bit. And then Jon Voight wants to juice him up with the like Ivan Drago knee juice.
Yeah.
To force him back out onto the field. And so they have this big mutiny scene.
Right. Like, no, don't do it. Because, yeah, Paul Walker, Lance Harbor, that's why his knee got hurt so bad is because they were ignoring the pain he was feeling in his knee, the minor injuries. And so then it was all sensitive and weak, and it got one bad hit, and that's why it completely imploded. So like, no, you don't want to do that, Wendell. You got to take care of yourself. And yeah, this mutiny is so strange. It's halftime. It's when you would get like the big inspirational speech, but they like are like, we're not going out there if you're our coach. And then he's like, nope, you're coming out. And then they just don't go out. And he's like, humph, and then like stomps off. And then they go out and they say, Paul Walker, Lance Harbor, you're the coach now. So now he's the head coach of the team for the second half. And one thing I haven't said yet, but they call out in the commentary is that they hired some real high school football announcers from Texas to be the football announcers here. And they only gave them like notes on what to say. And then just like, say this as if you were really going to say this. So like the football commentary is actually very good. And like, it sounds like something you would hear. And apparently their trademark, and you do hear this a couple times, is good golly gosh almighty, which I thought was pretty funny. But yes, they're like, where's the coach? The coach isn't out. Where could he be? And then, okay, at the end of the movie, jumping ahead a little, just what's the resolution of the coach thing? They're like, and the coach never coached again. I was like, what does that mean? I guess he resigned?
He slunk away. He was defeated.
So that was kind of goofy. That was like a little over the top for me, but I still liked it. It's over the top, but it does pay off. You're like, because you're like, you hate this guy. He's the worst throughout the whole movie. And he finally gets his comeuppance, which is nice.
There was some other movie it had me thinking of where just the wind is taken out of the villain's sails and that's what defeats him. And I'll think about what specifically it was. I'll probably drop it in the Discord. But it's not totally different from what we saw in Merlin. You know, it's just they're all going to turn their backs on him and he'll blink away because he's not believed in anymore.
I think that's a good summation of Dan Core versus Brian Core, Brian. You're talking about Merlin, and I'm talking about Varsity Blues. And we both see a similar plot beat of the villain being eradicated from history, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly. Damnatio Memoria. The old ways are done away with.
I have a little bit of mixed feelings about the ending, because I feel like it's good, because it pays off on everything very well. But also, I feel like they didn't quite land the plane on the tone. I didn't quite know how I should feel. Is it like we're kind of jaded about this whole thing, or we're celebratory because we won the big game? But it's a little bit of both. But also, like, I don't know, it just doesn't quite have the punch of threading that needle, I guess. I don't quite know how to say it, but I felt like I wanted one more wrinkle from the finale, like whether they actually lost the game and realized that it didn't matter, or like they won the game, but they celebrated it in a different way. Apparently one draft of the script was they were actually going to forfeit the game at halftime, so not go back out for the second half. And then the actual conclusion would be them playing a pickup game as sort of like a farewell to all the players.
Oh.
Which would have been very, very different in tone. Because this is like triumphal, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit that they want to have their cake and eat it too, because they do make the speech once they've ousted the coach, you know, sent him off, like marooned him. It really is like a mutiny. But that they say, are we actually going to go out there? Are we going to play this game? Are we going to try to win? Or was that part of what was bad? Like the pressure to win. Is that even something we want to do?
Right.
And what they have is this line about, well, we won't win it for him. We'll win it for us. Something cheesy like that, which I thought worked in the moment. I definitely, though, did feel that there are multiple ways they could have gone with it. So I totally believe that there were different drafts of this script.
Yeah. And I do think it's a movie you can tell they had to really think through and try a lot of things. They talk about some of the ideas that were in the movie that they ended up cutting in the commentary. So one is they had this idea. So, we didn't really say this, but like the plot with the girls. So the Ally Larder character, the whipped cream bikini character, like hits on James Van Der Beek very hard and then like kisses him. But like after he's like, no, I don't want to be with you. I want to be with my girlfriend. But she's like, oh, thank you. You're so nice. Thank you for respecting me. And then kisses him and walks away. And like the girlfriend sees this and is really upset. It's like, oh, come on. You're being the football douche, kissing all the hot girls. Which is kind of weird because that was like the moment he had rejected her. It would be a little different if it like she had caught him in a moment that was more like he was thinking about cheating on her.
You know, Dan, you know what this is like? What movie this moment had me thinking of?
What's that?
Was The Greatest Showman, because it has this beat where he's going around, Burnham is going around with Jenny Lind, and all the bells are going off. Oh, she wants him to cheat, and he basically tells her off, but then there's this big pivotal moment where she kisses him, and it's in all the woodcuts. It's in all the, like, the papers, then Michelle Williams is mad.
That is like that beat, right? Because he had like decided no, you know, but he kind of got caught after the fact that he was like even in the vicinity of it, you know? And so like he's girlfriendless, but then at the end, for reasons that aren't really clear, she's like, well, you can be my hero. You can go and win that game. And then he wins it and kisses her and they're back together. And there wasn't really much substance about like him discovering something in himself or like connecting more with the girl. They just kind of get back together. I also didn't shout out, I know we're hopping around a little bit, but right before the finale, we get the scene where he tells his dad he got into Brown, and the dad's like, well, I don't know much about that, but you got to go win a football game tomorrow. And then he says, but Dad, I don't want your life. I don't want your life.
Another one I was thinking of was October Sky.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this has got some October Sky. Now, one they cited as a major reference point also in the commentary was The Last Picture Show, which I actually have not seen. Have you seen that one?
No.
I think it's like nostalgic about the... I think it was made in the 70s, but nostalgic about the 50s. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure.
What's the movie that you've talked about before where I think you might have said it was a Woody Allen movie? Somebody gets obsessed with watching a movie, like goes and watches the same movie every day?
The Purple Rose of Cairo.
Okay, I don't know why I thought that was The Last Picture Show. It has somebody watching a movie.
Yeah, no, The Purple Rose of Cairo is a great movie. I know it's weird to talk about Woody Allen these days. Everybody hates Woody Allen. He was a great filmmaker, and he made some great movies. And that's all that I'll say right now. That's not a defense of him as a person, but I do like some of the movies that he has made. So, yeah. Oh, I was talking about some things they talked about in the commentary that they ended up not including. And one was when he reunites with his girlfriend, they had, at one point in the draft, the movie ending with a sex scene with him and his girlfriend reunited. And like cutting to credits and like having that be like the lead into the credits. And they ended up not doing that. Instead, it's like them cheering at the end of a football game, which I think was the right choice. And that would have been an awkward finale. But maybe when the girlfriend plot was a little more prominent, that would have made more sense. But yeah, that's Varsity Blues, Brian. What did we miss?
It's Varsity Blues. We did it. We watched it. We talked it. I was wondering, I guess... blues. I guess maybe that just highlights that there's a variety of tones, that there is some seriousness and some darkness in the film. There's not blues music. I was wondering, did you have any thoughts on the title specifically?
Great question, Brian. I like this discussion topic. And I think it's a great title. I really like it. I wish it was even more sentimental and introspective of a film. A little bit less raunchy comedy, like even more, not necessarily like gritty, but like the feelings of the players. because that would be more of the blues, you know?
Yeah, it's an evocative title, and it was one that I had heard a long time ago, and I don't know if I was super curious, but definitely now that the time had come, I was like, okay, I'll finally see what this Varsity Blues is all about.
And you shouted it out last week, but isn't that the name that they used for the investigation of like the college admission scandal?
That's right. That Aunt Becky from Full House was caught up in. She was helping her Nepo babies.
Right. That's all I got, though. I think I'm ready to rate, Brian.
Let's do it.
So Is It Good is our signature section where we each give the movie a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from very not good, which is a 1 out of 8, to our masterpiece rating, toward a good. Brian, is Varsity Blues from 1999 good?
I think it is solidly a good. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 8 and a pretty high 5 because this movie knows what it wants to be and does a pretty good job of achieving that. That it's this mix of raunchy comedy, but also pulling at real emotions and like making it a little darker and a little sadder and a little more almost maudlin than you might think. But it has like a lot of story strands going through it that all resolve, and it's pretty well done. Like you said, they didn't have to go that hard, and they did in some places. They pulled it off. They made it to the end zone. So yeah, pretty good. I almost am tempted to give it a 6. This is not quite the kind of movie that I would search out on my own, but I'm glad that I watched it. It didn't disappoint. So solid 5. Where are you at?
I'm actually at the same place, I think. A high-end 5, bordering into a 6. And there's a lot about this movie I like. Man, I feel like the first half hour, when we're really just kind of getting to know the world and you're just kind of immersing yourself in it, I was just vibing so much. I was just in such a good mood. It's like a visually interesting film, like I talked about, like more cinematic than you would expect. And I was just like getting myself back in that high school football headspace, and I was enjoying it. And yeah, it's being like a slightly over the top teen sports movie and raunchy comedy with some dramatic elements is like, that's up my alley. So I was there. I think it misses the boat on, or maybe it doesn't miss it, but it doesn't quite nail having all of its things tied together in a way where you're like, I get what this whole package is. Like it knows what each of the things it wants to be are, like you said, but I'm not sure those things always fully tie together in a way that elevate them. Like I'm not sure being an R-rated comedy makes it a better sports movie, you know? And so I kind of feel like it hits its ceiling, but that ceiling isn't all that high. The cast is pretty fun and they're very engaged. They're like, they're all in. There's people aren't holding back. You're remembering these characters. And yeah, Voight is so good at being this villain that he really just is the essence of an awful football coach without being a cartoon, though, I guess. One thing they talked about in the commentary I haven't said yet is there was some talk of making the movie PG-13 early in production, or I guess pre-production, and rewriting the script to make it PG-13, but like a high-end PG-13. But they decided to just make it an R. It's very much an R-rated movie. And I think that was the right choice, but like where I think it really shines is like the coaches are just like cursing out their players and like insulting them with like F-bombs and stuff. And it just has some real punch to it. I was like, this is intense. So hearing Jon Voight say fuck a lot as a high school football coach, it works. But I'm kind of all over the place in this rating. I think it's a satisfying film, and I don't think it's a masterpiece. And I don't want your laugh. I just enjoy saying that. And you can find isolated clips of it on YouTube. And I definitely have watched it about 400 times in the past week. I have this coworker that, for whatever reason, he just likes to say that line. And so I've always associated that line with this movie just because of my coworker saying it.
You just got to find out what life you want, and then any other life, you can use that clip.
You point at it and say, I don't want your life. You're in a marching band and someone lends you their flute, but you got to use your own. You say, I don't want your fife. I think that's about as many as I'm going to be able to get out here. I should have prepared a whole list of them.
We can return to the topic in weeks ahead. But yes, when will the moment be as opportune?
No, I don't know. But that's all we got, Brian. So next week we have something interesting, if we can swing it. One of our old friends who worked on our old blog with us, and I've known since I was 14 years old, so 23 years now. Great fella. His name's Colton. He will be joining us, and we will be talking rom-coms. I said choose any movie for us to watch, and he picked He's Just Not That Into You. So we'll see why when we talk to Colton. I genuinely don't know why. I'm very curious why. So this should be a fun conversation. Looking forward to talking with Colton and you, Brian, next week on the Goods of Film podcast as our last stop before spooky season.
Yep, we'll probably make some more marching band talk.
That's right. All right, see you next week, Brian.
Bye, everybody. Join us again.
I don't want your life. I don't want your life. I don't want your life.